Hello everybody, welcome to Naresh IT. I am Muniba and today I am going to take a section on verbal ability. Everybody thinks verbal ability is very difficult to crack because you think it has to do with grammar, and that is a misconception. So here we are going to put before you few rules with regards to the section, that is spotting errors or error correction. So people think if you are well versed with grammar, only then you can solve this section, but that's a misconception. This is a highly scoring section in the verbal ability test. So to be able to crack this section easily and score high, we will be discussing a few rules which you can look at, and it makes it easier for you to do this particular section. So here when we are talking about the first rule, that is subject verb agreement. When we see subject verb agreement, we all know that subject is the person we are talking about. The verb is the verb form that we use for the subject. So when we say an agreement of this, so we say if a subject is singular, the verb has to be singular. Like for example, when I say a boy is playing, I mean boy is the subject here and is the verb here. So the subject is singular, boy is singular, so the verb is singular. So here the first rule is the subject verb agreement, where the subject is singular, the verb has to be singular. And likewise, if the subject is plural, the verb would be plural. For example, the boys are playing. So here boys is a subject which is plural in number, so automatically the verb would be plural. So we say boys are. Now the second one in the subject verb agreement is when we are talking about connecting two subjects with and. So the rule that applies here is when two subjects are connected by and, we use a plural verb. For example, so here we have the two subjects Rita and Sita. So they are connected by and. So the verb that we use here is are. Though the subjects are singular, but we know the connecting word here is and, so the subject would be plural, that is are. Okay. Now if the third rule is when we are connecting two subjects with or. So here it would be whether the subject is singular or plural, we would use singular verb. For example, so here we have the two subjects Rita and Sita connected by or, and the verb that we use here is singular. So Rita or Sita is playing. So these are the first three rules for subject verb agreement, and we will continue further. So when you are connecting two subjects with either or the use of neither nor, the rule is if the subjects are singular, or I'll give you an example here. So either Sita or Rita is playing. Now both our subjects are singular, so we use the verb in the singular form. Now the same goes for neither nor. If the subjects are singular, we say neither Sita nor Rita is playing. Same rule applies. Now the rule changes when one of the subjects is plural. For example, we say, now here we usually, if we have two subjects, if one is singular then and the other is plural, then the rule that we apply here is we use the plural subject after and we use the verb after it in plural form. So here Sita is singular, we use it first, either Sita or her friends. Now when we say her friends, here we are talking about plural number. So we say are playing and not is playing. So the rule that we decide here is if it's singular subject, both are singular, then we use is, that is the verb in the singular form. And if one of the subjects is plural, then we use the plural subject in the latter part, and the verb that we use is in plural form. Now the fifth one that we use, the rule regarding subject verb agreement, is for collective nouns. Now I think you all know what collective nouns are. When we use a particular noun to refer to the group on the whole, we use a collective noun. For example, we have a cricket team. We say a team of players. So here the rule for collective noun is, though we are talking about a group, but we use one collective name for all, we use the verb in the singular form. For example, I say, so the collective noun that I use here is a team, and the verb that I am using is singular. So I am not saying a team are playing, I am saying a team is playing. So we use a singular verb for collective noun. But there is an exception to this rule. The exception is, there are 4 collective nouns for which we use a plural verb. So those 4 collective nouns are police, cattle, poultry and gentry. So here when we say the police, so we will not say the police is coming, or we say the police are coming. So for these 4 collective nouns we use a plural verb. Is that clear to all of you? The next rule for subject verb agreement is, which I believe is very confusing. Many of us are not sure which one to use. We get very confused between the use of I and me. So here sometimes we say my friends and I are going, my friends and me are going. We are not sure which one to use. So this is a very easy way to find out which one is the right one and which one to use. So here what you do is, we already discussed the rule for and. We said when the subjects are there, whatever the subjects, if they are connected by and, we use are. So we say Rita and dash are going. So what do we use in this dash? Do we use I or me? So now you may think Rita and I are going or Rita and me are going, both are correct. So to avoid that confusion, what you have to do is remove Rita and. Okay, so when you remove this, so you have I and me are going. So do you say I am going or me am going? Definitely you say I am going. So here the subject that you would use is I, and here this is are because of the use of and, but otherwise it would be I am going and not I are going. So here you'll say Rita and I am going. So now the next one, what you would do is, okay, let Rita and dash play. So here I am not sure, let Rita and I play or let Rita and me play. So what you do here is, now you apply the same rule. So here remove Rita and you say let dash play. So would it be let I play or let me play? So you will say let me play. So here you would use the pronoun me there. So this is how you decide whether to use I or me. The same goes for other pronouns, for his and him, she and her. So if you try to apply the same rule, you will be closer to your answer and you will be getting the right answer or the right option. Now we move on to the next rule in subject verb agreement, and that is the use of. Now you all are very familiar with these words, each, every and any. So here when we are combining these words with for example, we say each one, everyone or everybody, anyone, anybody. The rule that we apply here is, when we use these words, we use it for a group of people. Like for example, we are going for a party. So we want to know everybody. So when we talk about people, we say everybody. Now we don't know how many people are coming. So people, we say people are coming. But when we give a term everybody for that people, then that is somewhat like a collective noun. So we say everybody, we will not say are coming, we say everybody is coming. So any word or that is connected by these words, you will use the verb in the singular form and not a plural form, because it implies plural number. No, you will use the verb in a singular form. Well, the rules that we discussed just now were regarding subject verb agreement. Now subject verb agreement is a very vast topic, so we cannot cover all the rules, because here the time is a constraint. When you are going for verbal ability sections in your test, you cannot focus entirely on all the rules related to grammar. So here we have discussed the most important ones which are asked in the sections and which will make it easier for you to crack those sections. The next point that we discuss here is parallelism. Now what do you mean by parallelism? When we say parallel, we already know parallel means two lines running together but they do not meet. So here when we are saying, we mean it has to do with the verbs. Or for example, I have a sentence, Sita likes a lot of things. So Sita likes playing, Sita likes eating, Sita likes cooking. So we are talking about different verbs here. When we do that, we say Sita likes what? So the word that we use here are, we are talking about a few things that Sita likes. She likes eating, she likes sleeping, she likes cooking. So here, if you notice, after likes, the verb that we are using here is in the gerund form or the ing form. So when we mean parallelism, that means you use all the verbs in the same form. There is no differentiation here. And the same way, if I do not want to use the gerund form or the ing form, I again use a different form, that is the base form of the verb, or you can call it the infinitive form. So what here I do is, now here with the infinitive form I use to. So when I say Sita likes to, obviously I am not going to say likes to eating, sleeping or cooking. So what I do is, I use the verb in the infinitive form. I say Sita likes to eat, sleep and cook. But now I cannot say Sita likes to eat, sleep and cooking. So this would be the odd one out, and this would not be similar, or this does not tell us about the rule of parallelism where we are using the verbs in the same form. So if you are using the gerund form, use the ing form for all the verbs, and if you are using the base form or the infinitive form, use the base form and not the ing form. So this would be the right way to use it. So this is the second rule for error correction. Now let's move on to the third rule, which is tautological error. Now what do you mean by tautological? Tautological actually means like something in repetition, or we even call this an error of redundancy. So when we say, I'll give you a very simple example here. Now when I say I went to Delhi last week and I returned back from Delhi. So my sentence is, I returned back from Delhi. So do you think this sentence is right? Well, I think many of you would think this is right, and you'll say, okay, there's nothing wrong with this sentence. Absolutely right. A few of you may say, no, this is wrong, there's something wrong in this sentence. Well, for your information, I would say there is something wrong in this sentence. When I say return back, would I be right there? So if there is an error, where is the error? Is it from Delhi? No, because I'm saying I came back from Delhi. So no error there. I know. So where is the error lying? So it's somewhere here, returned back. So when I'm saying return back, what does return mean? Return means come back. So when I'm saying return back, literally I'm saying come back, back. So I'm using the back word twice. One is included in the meaning and one is I'm using in excess. So here I will not say I returned back from Delhi. What I'll say is I returned from Delhi. So this would be the right answer. Now this is the tautological error. If I am repeating a word or I am using a word in excess which is already included in the meaning, it is called a tautological error. Let me give you another example. If you look at the sentence we are going to discuss about, I believe many of you may have taken part in group discussions, and many of you may have said this, or many of you may have heard people saying we are going to discuss about politics, we are going to discuss about corruption, we are going to discuss about social networking sites. Am I right? Yes. So but is it right to say discuss about? No, I don't think so. So if you think it's right, then you need to correct yourself, because when we say discuss about, it's the same error that we are applying here. It's the tautological error. What does discuss mean? Discuss means speak about, talk about, right, or argue about. So the word about is already included in its meaning. So we say discuss about means talk about. So aren't you using that word twice? So doesn't that look a little awkward or sound a little awkward? So here we are supposed to actually say we are here to discuss corruption, we are here to discuss politics. That's the right way to say. So never say discuss about. I hope you understand this, because this is the major mistake that people make in group discussions, which is not acceptable and which is not right. Okay, fine. So now with this we'll move on to the next point for error correction. Okay, the next point that we are going to discuss here for error correction is misplaced modifiers. Now here many of us make a blunder of just leaving the participle dangling in the sentence. Now you'll understand what I mean to say here. I'll give you a very simple example. Okay, this is our example sentence. Sitting on the gate, the scorpion stung him. Now, can you imagine a scorpion sitting on the gate and stinging a person at the same time? Is that possible? No, grammatically the sentence would be incorrect. So here, what we are doing is, we are using the modifier in the wrong place. So here the right sentence should be, the scorpion stung the man sitting on the gate. So who is sitting on the gate here? It's not the scorpion, but the man sitting on the gate. So we cannot use sitting on the gate for the scorpion, it has to be used for the man. So when we are using the verb in its wrong place, it conveys a completely different meaning, and that would be grammatically incorrect. So we have to place the modifier in its right place. Okay, so this is the next point, and the fifth point for error correction is use of few and less. Many people have a confusion when to use few and when to use less, and I think you may have the same confusion too. So here, be very clear, we use few for countable nouns and we use less for uncountable nouns. Now I know you are very well aware what countable nouns are. It's the number, it can be singular or plural, where you actually can count how many of a quantity. Then when we say less, we use for uncountable nouns. We know the thing, but we cannot actually count its quantity. So here I'll give you a very simple example. When we say a few students are in class. So now here, can you count the number of students? So yes, you can count the number of students in class. So here the right way is few students. But can you say less students were in class? Because even if you're talking about less students, you can count. For example, let's say there are only 10 students in class. So is it countable or uncountable? Definitely countable. So we'll not say less students, we'll say few students. So the rule is, for countable nouns we'll use few, and for uncountable nouns we'll use less. I'll give you an example for that. Okay, here I say there is less milk or juice in the jar. So now you cannot count how much juice. Okay, maybe you can measure it, but can you count how much it is? No, you cannot. So here you will not say there is few milk or juice, you say there is less. So we use less for uncountable nouns, where you cannot actually count the quantity. So where here we can say there is less of milk and juice and not few of milk and juice in a particular container. Okay. Now here, when we are talking about few and less, there is a difference between few and a few. You need to be aware of that too. Few is for a negligible number. Okay, so when we say it's almost next to no, few people came for the class. So for example, if you are expecting a very huge number, but only 1 or 2 people turn up, or maybe less than 10 turn up, so we say few people. Okay, now when we say a few, that means it's again countable, but a relatively larger number than few. So when we say a few people came for the concert, so here we mean there was a good number. So almost no and a good number, that's the difference between few and a few. So far we've discussed these 5 points. Now we move on to the 6th point, and that is when we talk about grammatical errors, we know there's something wrong with the sentence formation, or one of the parts of speech is not used correctly or in the right order. But what do you mean by idiomatic errors? Idiomatic errors are those errors where the sentence is correct, but you use the preposition wrongly, or there is no use of preposition and you use the preposition there. So that is called an idiomatic error. I'll give you a very simple and the most common example which majority of us make, and that is here, I told to my friend. Now many of you may think that is right. Okay, that's absolutely right. I told to my friend. What's wrong in that sentence? Well, what's wrong in this sentence is use of to. Now this to, you all know it's a preposition. So here we call it an idiomatic error because with the verb told, you don't have to use to there. So I told my friend. Then here, if you say I told to my friend, you may think, whom did I tell? It's to my friend. That is why you're using to there. But absolutely unnecessary. So we see it's very simple. You just have to say I told my friend. So that's the idiomatic error. So wrong use of preposition or unnecessary use. Like for example, I'll give you, okay, here I say the building comprises of 10 flats. So I know there's a building, there are 10 flats in that building. So here, where am I going wrong? You may think it's right. Why? Comprises of 10 flats. This is what we normally say. But is it really right? No, it's not. So here when we say comprises of, what do we do here is, comprises means consists of. So here you can say it's a tautological error, or again it's an idiomatic error because you don't need of here. Of is already included in its meaning. So we say the building comprises 10 flats and of is not required. So this is an idiomatic error, and mostly this is where we go wrong in identification. We think it is right because we hear people saying it or we ourselves use it that way, and that is where we go wrong. And this needs to be checked. This is one of the important points for spotting errors. Now the next point for spotting errors is time sequence. What do we mean by that? It's very simple. We know the tenses are divided into three: present, past and future. So here, if for example we are talking about something that happened in the present, and usually if it's a continuity, then we use all the tenses or all the verbs in that particular tense. So if I give you an example, I went to the supermarket yesterday. Okay, so when I say I went to the supermarket yesterday, so we all know I'm talking about the past tense here. So the subsequent sentences would always be in the past tense. I cannot say I went to the supermarket yesterday and I am buying apples. Would that be right? No, definitely not. You may think because you were buying at that time. So here instead of saying I am buying, you say I was buying or I bought in any form of the past tense. Because what happens if you say I went to the supermarket, I am buying, you're confusing the listener. The listener doesn't know or cannot understand whether you want to say something in the present tense or the past tense. So you need to have clarity with what tense you are saying something in, and see to it that all the sentences that you form are in the same tense and not fluctuating. So one shouldn't be in the present tense and the other in the past tense, because that is very confusing information and people will not understand what you're trying to say. Okay, so you have to look at the time sequence there. The last point, which is very simple and which many people follow, but I wouldn't really recommend that. But if you have no option, then this is the point that you can follow, and that is called, okay, you've tried applying all these rules, all these points, but still you're not able to find the error there in that sentence. So what do you do at that time? So we call it know the years. So you may have heard it somewhere. So what you do is, if you're confused, you're not able to come to a conclusion which is right or wrong. So what you're going to do is put that option in the sentence or try to read that sentence. And here it's called going by your instinct. So probably you may have heard that somewhere, or you may have read that somewhere, or you may have spoken that somewhere. So if that's the case, you will definitely be sure 90% of the time that yes, this is the place where the error is. But I would again suggest, if still you're not able to, then go by your instinct which you think is right, and then go by that, and you will definitely, and I wouldn't say 100%, but most of the time you would be right. But that doesn't mean you have to look at that option all the time. That's the last option available to you. So try to apply these rules for spotting errors, and believe me, practice will make you perfect and you'll definitely score a better score in your verbal ability section. Thank you so much.